Hello and welcome back to the Home Improvement Podcast, Season 2, Episode 7. Today we are going to have a little discussion about independent retailers and the differences between them and us as a company, some of the things we do and think are important in building relationships with our clients.
Yep. Sounds lovely. Yes, I think it's very useful to talk about that. But before we start, should we clear up maybe what you mean when you say independent for the purposes of this video?
Yes.
Audio.
So when you're looking, basically, are you thinking about going to contract a national company or a smaller business, a bit more like a family-run business to undertake your work?
Yeah.
And some of those reasons as to why you might want to do that and the added value beyond working with a national company, because 9 times out of 10, a national company will have a smaller product and better buying terms, so likely to have a slightly lower cost, but they're much more restricted versus an independent who is most likely focused more on service, quality and longevity as an overall kind of arching reason as to kind of being in that business, and one of the biggest reasons why people should be working with us, really.
I agree. Or companies of the magnitude that we are in.
Yeah.
Support, first of all, local businesses.
Indeed.
And I think for me personally, one of the biggest things, and I think it's obvious, but when you're a client, you don't think of it that way, because every time you walk into a showroom, there's someone out there, a salesperson that's looking to get you money, right? A lot of clients are like, oh, even though I want your product,
don't talk to me.
I don't want to give you the money. I'm joking.
Why do you need my name?
Yeah. But I think a big one is for a small company like us, every client that walks through the door, we need to make sure that they walk out happy. And that is even if you don't buy anything from us, we need to make sure you walk out happy because that is, clients are literally our bread and butter. A lot of big companies will tell you that as well. Like, oh, clients are family, they're everything. But in the end, if they are serving like 30,000 people in a day, then your kitchen is probably not that big of a deal for them. For a smaller company that has 2-3 clients walk in a week, then every one of them counts and every one of them needs to be, like, to get the full treatment, like 5 stars, because their happiness means we get more clients, we get more business, and eventually we can, pay our bills and buy rice.
Yeah, we can. It directly impacts us. Yeah, regardless. So, yeah.
What else do you think is important to keep in mind?
Generally, so you've got that happiness. Oh, you've put me on the spot, and I've completely forgot. We had a list, and I've gone blank. So,
I think the quality of products is important to note as well.
Yeah, quality of products. So, there are a huge array of products out there, and essentially, if we look at kitchens, which we predominantly work in, the carcass board is something that's termed as MFC for 95% of the kitchens out there. So it's a chipboard core with a facing on there, and a lot of people kind of recoil at the word chipboard, but it's sustainable, and there are different grades as well.
This is very important. So if you take anything away from here, sorry to interrupt, there are different grades of chipboard. So a company to company, they'll both be selling chipboard, but there's 16 different grades. It's a lot. So the grade of chipboard is what is important. Nobody's going to sell you a carcass made out of hardwood, or maybe they would.
You get veneer and plywood, but that's a premium offering for sure.
Exactly. We're talking six figures there, probably more.
But that chipboard, the reason there are different grades and the impact to you, which you're never going to be able to see in a showroom, is how much air is in between that chipboard. And if you're putting heavy items on it,
like the quartz worktops.
Yeah. if you're putting heavy items on it, that air eventually compresses, and that's where you get your chips and your kind of dents. Again, the laminate facing, the glues that are used, all of those things you can't necessarily see. So you can walk into a showroom and think, this looks amazing. I don't understand why there's a difference. And if we say on the doors and hinges, you're using the same brand, but again, you've got different levels within that brand. And even within the product that we do, we have our standard range, and then you can go up a little bit and have something that, you know, these bells and whistles, or you can go down a bit and save a little bit of money, but get the function. And then you've got below that as well, which is more prevalent in the national market. So again, it's those minute details that each of the independent retailers is considered, and have also had experience on the issues coming back personally as well, rather than it being to a kind of call center.
Absolutely. Exactly. And I think that is, I want to make a point of that as well, that for a small company like us, because again, client walks into a showroom, designer / salesperson in front of them, who knows if what they're saying is true, if it's not true, whatever, could all sound the same. But for a small company, we have no interest in like telling not truths to a client, or not like full truths, and not being like completely transparent from the start. Because if we are aiming to be here in 5, 10, 15 years time, which is obviously what we want to be, then it will just come back to bite us. And when it comes back to bite us, we don't have unlimited resource of like money from our 10 million other clients to draw back on. We're a small company. So if our product fails, then it's a massive expense, hassle, and gap in the calendar for us, and disruption, to get that sorted and make sure the client is happy. So from the start, we want to make sure that clients get the best that we can offer, and that is a service and as a product. So again, we've got more to lose than the client.
More skin in the game.
More skin in the game. Exactly. So that means that we're going to throw everything at every client, make sure that we give it our best.
Absolutely. I think also kind of moving on beyond that, because a lot of people think about that as being the initial difference between national companies and independents, and it's something that you'll hear when you Google, where can I get my kitchen or my bathroom from in Milton Keynes or Sheffield or Manchester, wherever it is you live. All of these different places will come up, and they'll use really similar kind of words and tones to describe this. But also, I think between each of the independent companies, you get a very different level of service, and there are, depending on what you want from the service and what you want from the relationship that you're building with that company, there's a lot of cues that they give off to if they're the right people with you. Like the qualifications say, and how they are when they approach. Are they a company who lets you look around the showroom in your own time and approach them asking questions? Are they a company who wants to give you a tour and hold your hand and show you very specific products? For me, when I go into those different areas, I quite like being able to acclimatize to the space and just have a bit of time to assess the feel of the area and the people in there, rather than being shown from bit to bit. I feel like that's more salesy. Having been trained in a direct sales role, if I get a whiff of that, I recoil. So I like to be able to have that space and know that it's not a product being sold to me to get me out of the door, and that it's actually about finding the right solution for what I'm looking for and getting to know me. But that's not how everyone works. Some people just want to know this is a product that's going to do X, Y, and Z and leave. And so depending on what you're looking for, I think that can give you a feel of if the people there and the approach is right for you. So I think that's kind of quite important. And also things, recently I was sat in the showroom and someone came in and just said to me, why do I buy from you when not someone else down the road? And for me, my response was, we're all interior designers. We've all got qualifications and trainings within interior design. So it's not just a case of taking 600 units and 1,000 pan drawer and putting them in a room. It's thinking about your workflows, the variations in the family home, or if it's just you, the entertaining, the flow and interaction with the rest of the house, and in internal and external. How do you come into the house? The cohesiveness, should it follow on from the rest of the house, or do you want it to be a standalone feature? All of those things are considered, along with the flooring. How's that going to perform? Is that going to work with your underfloor heating? Is it going to be safe as a condition continues? So if you've got early Parkinson's and have got risks of falls, are you buying the right flooring, or should you be looking at something else? So kind of really delving deeper into what a client's needs are. And what it is they want from that service. And have they got a lifestyle where they can take on project management, or actually do they need someone to do that for them and really take a lot of that burden off them? So again, when you go into independence, you can easily get that feel for if they're that kind of company or if they're not. And there's no right or wrong way. It's just about what's right for you as an individual.
Yeah. What approach are you looking for? Are you looking for someone to take the problems you have and solve them for you, or just to, like, I don't know, swap the cabinets around and get it over and done with? I think it'd be interesting to discuss some of the questions we ask to, get to know clients, because we use this form, if that's okay to share. We use this form that has some questions, and some of these questions a bit weird. People are not used to being asked these questions, especially if their experience is mostly with like nationwide big companies that sort of concentrate more on selling a product quickly than actually getting to know the client. And some clients are a bit like, oh, that's a bit private, or that sounds a bit too invasive.
What relevance does that have?
What relevance does that have? Oh, my favorite. And to be honest, yes, I'm rolling my eyes, but if I was a client looking to purchase a kitchen for the second time in my life, and someone's asking me these questions, I'd be like, what? Are we going on a date? What's happening? So shall we go through a few and just explain why we asking these questions?
Yeah, sure.
Have you got the form on file?
Yeah, I've got my form and my phone ready to be able to go through them. But initially, you've got the kind of questions you'd expect. What's your name? I mean, I think that's fairly obvious. Your phone number, your address.
We need your contact details in order to be able to contact you.
Yeah, and
once you inquire.
Yeah, provide you with the design and the quote.
Yes.
So there are those questions, any kind of questions around style or colours that you may or may not like. That's really helpful, really kind of the questions you expect to be asked.
Of course.
But one of the early questions on that form, which I think makes people kind of sit back, is the occupation.
The occupation one.
And I know that when I've had new designers start with us, they're like, well, what, that's just something that's on there. What relevance has that got? But I think that the history of working with people for 20 years, knowing what someone does is really useful, because if you're working with someone who is more technically minded, say an engineer, the information that's going to be most important to them will be more technical details and logistics, and over maybe the aesthetics so much. They'll go, okay, that's the color I like, but how is this going to work? I can't understand how you're going to make that float, or how do we get the power from there to there with these things in the way? So thinking about that is important. And if you take finance, for example, a lot of people think, if you're dealing with an accountant, then therefore they're looking for the cheapest, which isn't ever the case in my experience. They are value engineers. So they're thinking about what is the best value to them. So helping them identify what is of good value to them is something that we can work with on them and help them approach, and just understand how their mind is likely working to help them make the right decisions for them. So it's all about our approach in our service and understanding the potential or likelihood of the mindset that our clients are kind of coming from as well.
Absolutely.
So I think that's probably the first one that people think, hang on a moment.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's so much information that you can give clients, and you need to boil it down to the parts that are relevant to them.
Yeah.
And knowing who your client is to an extent, obviously not, not everyone's just what they work, but how their minds work most of the day helps you synthesize that information. I think that's the word. Anyway, to boil it down to how they would see it the best, how they would, understand it the best, and what use the least amount of their time, because it's a very time-consuming thing, and not everyone has a lot of time to, invest in it.
I think that's really important, and one of the things that I say is about kind of holding people's hands throughout the journey and making it as concise as possible for them, because everyone's time poor these days and would prefer to be doing other. And yes, it's an exciting process, but when you've got so much information, you feel like you're taking some kind of exam at the end of it. It's good to have that tailored to you and to be efficient. What other questions have you had from our form, had some kind of queries over?
I think value of the house is one of these things. I feel like when it comes to like occupation or value of the house, maybe a lot of clients feel like we're profiling them on how much they earn or something like that.
Yes.
But the thing is, we can probably tell that by Googling their name
and their address.
And their address, yeah. But the reason we're asking these questions in the initial inquiry form is if we wanted to know these things, which we don't obviously, but why we ask these questions is because if we know the value of a house, then we can deduce what would be the expected value for the kitchen in that house, because the kitchen is one of these spaces that is directly related to the value of the property. If the finishes are not correspondent to the value of the property, then it will immediately feel off. If you're potentially trying to sell that property in the future, a buyer is going to notice that. It could have an impact. The value of the property can also speak to the size sometimes of the property, which again is important. So if you have like a 2-bed house, then you probably need a 4-burner hob and a small 1.5 sink. If you have a 6-bedroom house, then probably a bigger family is expected to live there more often than not. So you probably need a 5-6 burner hob and a 2-bowl sink and a utility room to a single fridge, single freezer. All of these things, they translate to like design features. So it's very important for us to know.
Also in terms of the products, so we've said about some of the kind of upscaling, the bells and whistles, and the more budget conscious options. So if you're looking, if it's a more entry level property or a smaller property, you're more likely to not be looking at spending 25% of the value of the house on the kitchen. You're going to be less than that. So being able to help you identify which products are going to give you the best function and result in your home as well.
Yeah. I remember.
And likewise, not putting something in that doesn't meet the value of the house as well. So again, when we visit, there's a certain element that we can ascertain from that, but knowing where we are, facts are facts, and it's very helpful.
Exactly. I remember when I first started working with you, you had this thing where the value of the kitchen project was 7% of the value of the property, which was like a magical number that sort of kind of worked out always. But I feel like in the last couple of years, that's kind of gone out the window a bit. Or
it's somewhere between 8 and 12%. So This is something that's become... So this was just a theory I had. Or so I thought. I'd obviously read it somewhere at some point.
Okay. I thought you were just looking at the numbers.
But when you looked at the numbers, it always correlated. So it seems sensible to use that. But now I've seen that somewhere between about 8 to 12% is more of what the kitchen value would be. So no extensions on there, nothing major happening in terms of building, but to be able to do your kitchen with quartz worktops and appliances and your flooring, you're probably looking somewhere between that 8 to 12% value. And again, I think that reflects very nicely to the house property price. And then when you get to over $1 million, that does skew a little bit. It's a little bit less, but not massively. So somewhere between kind of 6 to 9% is what most people spend on that element of the project. And again, it correlates quite nicely. And the kitchen and utility space and that functional space is so important to people who are looking at buying houses. So if they can move in and they like what is already there, or it's at least functional, it is really conducive to having a quick sale or a lot of inquiries as well. So that has a kind of almost hidden value to your property as well, I think.
Yeah. What about dietary requirements? What do we need to know about that?
So this is something from personal experience, because I have to give up all the tasty foods that I now kind of think about, because I don't want to make myself poorly for 6 weeks, because that's how long it takes me to recover. It's just highlighted to me that when people are undertaking their own renovations in such a space that is so personal and easy to kind of get cross-contamination, and that something we should be considering. And since adding that to our inquiry form, it's really highlighted lots of different requirements. So we've had people who have neurodivergent children who have come in and said that they need to be able to keep snacks locked away because of impulse control. We've had conversations surrounding allergies and intolerances, being able to have 2 toasters, for example, so that you're not contaminating gluten-free bread with wheaty bread, tasty bread. So those things are a consideration, because it's an additional appliance that's needed. For myself, we now don't have any flour in the house that isn't gluten-free, but that doesn't mean that a family of 6 for one person's going to do that. So being able to keep the specialist flour in one area away from the other, the risk of that getting confused is reduced. Trying to teach your children to be independent and produce their own food, the risk of contamination increases. So again, being able to have those separation on prep areas become important. So there's a lot of thought and consideration in the design behind asking that question. It comes down to kind of medication as well. So sometimes you've got medication storage that's required within the kitchen or refrigeration. Is that something that needs to be considered as well? And it's all very personal, and people approach these things in different ways. So being able to open up that conversation and make sure that you're considering it from the outset, I think is really important, rather than holding it back and then thinking 18 months down the line, you've still got that issue.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. If you're, again, doing that investment, you might as well address things that are important to you personally and in your family. I think another one like this is pets. And sometimes clients laugh at it, but at the end, it turns out to be such a big change, because if you have pets, if you're used to having pets especially, and that's part of it. Obviously, your pet is a part of your family, wanting to have a space that is dedicated to them, even if it's just like a little nook where you can put the football and you know that this is where their food and water goes, or this is where they sleep. Because we've had a lot of clients come in and say, our dogs are with us in the kitchen all the time. They have their space. We need to make sure that there is a space for them. And actually, in some cases, that has been quite a big design point that we have worked on for a very long time.
Yes.
And to get that right is so important for people. So it's an important question to ask from the start and know that it's something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the reasons why I added that to the form, not really thinking about it, was because I kicked a water bowl over on our home measure, and I thought to myself, do you know what? That would drive me up the wall, because I would do that all the time. Not having pets in my home at the moment, kicking over the water bowl, I would do that constantly. So to have somewhere for that, I thought, well, that makes sense that you think about that now. But yeah, it's spiraled into the pet beds and how you
cat
move
litter in the
around.
utility room.
Absolutely. And also things like spacing. So between an island and an oven unit, if you've got a big dog, then you actually need to think about how you're going to maneuver if they wander around into that area as well.
Yes.
Because there is only so much training you can do and implement. So that is another consideration. So it might be, okay, the dogs don't sleep in here, so we don't need a bed, but are they going to be around?
Yeah.
Are they a consideration for when you're accessing the pantry unit or something?
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's also the question about whether, like children, whether they're part of like the preparation of food, because then we need to be a bit more vigilant about safety. Corners where we position things like ovens, dishwasher doors, etc. If you have like toddlers running around you, then obviously you can't put your oven 2 meters away from the nearest bit of worktop. Even if you would like that nice bank of towers on that back wall where all your tow units are. No, your ovens for safety need to be somewhere more accessible where you can take something hot out, put it away, because you have toddlers running around. And these, again, are things we need to consider as designers.
Yes, definitely. I think another one, just leading off of what you were saying, is a topic that no one likes to talk about, and I will always mention it and I get mixed responses from it, and that is hereditary conditions, how long you want to live in the house and anything that may change. So that future proofing and building in value from the start as well. So thinking about things that you might consider to not be a problem, how that might change. So diabetes, for example, you have neuropathy that you might need to consider, say loss of sensation. You have eye conditions and depth perception you may experience, and contrast. Parkinson's, as I've mentioned before, cataracts again has an issue there. Maybe you need to be considering something that has more of an audible notification if you have got eyesight issues, which may deteriorate over the next 5 to 10 years. Maybe being able to have that audible dinging at the end, or being able to have a voice control to set your oven. Maybe these things are things that you should be considering now, rather than thinking it's a bit gimmicky. There are other reasons for asking this, making sure that it suits you and your lifestyle.
Hey, I completely understand that. Maybe talking about, your potential, hereditary conditions or any like hidden or visible disabilities on the first date with a designer might be a bit much, and could feel a bit invasive. But at the same time, it is our job to make sure that this product you're buying for the next 20, 25 years of your life would actually serve you for the next 20, 25 years of your life. It's not just about looking good. It's about function, and that function changes with time, and whether we like it or not. That's just life. So
it is, and we can make reasonable adjustments for the understanding of what 20 years does to anyone. But understanding your circumstances and potentials is something that you should be considering and talking about. And we shouldn't be afraid of it. We're all going to experience it personally at some point, if we're lucky enough to, and making sure that you make that as easy and as enjoyable as possible should be a priority for people.
So there's a lot of talk about interior design that we're doing, and that's a bit of maybe like a touchy subject, but where do you think kitchen designers fit in that interior designer world? Because I've heard some bad things and I've heard some nice things.
Okay.
But it's kind of difficult to pinpoint where we are, because obviously you have, sorry.
Go for it.
I asked the question, but let me answer it first.
Answer.
So obviously, maybe because there's so many companies out there that are big companies that, or even small companies perhaps, that, offer a service that's very basic. And you have someone who's called a designer, but they're basically just a salesperson. And they don't offer much value in terms of design but then the service is free. That sets up, I think, a certain expectation, which we have to answer to, and we are sort of heaped into, unfortunately, as well, even though we're providing a completely different type of service. So how can people differentiate between that? Where do we fit in the whole thing? And yeah, what's the value of us?
I think it is a really grey area, because you do get the people who can produce your...
I'm so sorry about that.
That was the worst we've had. So you do get the people who can produce the really lovely renders and put the drawers in and make a couple of suggestions that fix a couple of the immediate problems that you've already highlighted. And then you have the next step where you've got people who may consider flooring and lighting and the aesthetics a bit further. And then I think where we kind of fit is another step on there. And I was speaking with a group of retailers yesterday where we all had similar approaches in terms of making sure that there was a robust qualification. And that's more than, do you use a microwave? Do you want a combination microwave?
Where do you want your fridge?
Where do you want your fridge? Do you want a hot tap? More than that product focused element to it. And just discussing, the personal side of it as well. And it really does go into that interior design and interior architectural kind of element of design, and adds a lot more value and takes a lot more time and a lot more experience and expertise and training to kind of get there. So there is a lot more to consider beyond your basic design. And you can find this kind of thing out from conversations and asking questions, but there are bodies out there that kind of you can look for as well. So you can have a look at some of those interior kind of structures and find companies up and down the country to find a designer who will give you that kind of, I was likening it earlier to kind of landscaping. So your hard landscaping or hard kind of design element versus the soft landscaping and the textiles side of things. So it's finding that kind of balance to what's right for you. And all of those people that I mentioned there are paid for services, and we kind of bridge in between that. So if you're looking for more of a service and more creative design, then the anticipation of there being a cost associated to that is something that you need to be kind of aware of and expecting.
I agree. Any last thoughts? What are the worst things you've heard about kitchen designers? Just quickly to end it on a fun note.
Okay, I was going to talk about solar panels.
Oh, wow. We haven't got time for this.
So moving on to that. Boxes on walls. So that's a phrase that's used in the industry that all kitchen designers do, is put boxes on walls. And also the to and fro that you get between designers and technical teams of how do you make this work? How do you expect me to do this? You have no consideration of this. But that is just workplace banter, really. Keeps the day going by. But yeah, the boxes on walls, and that it's all about the quartz that you put on top of the work, the units, and the units mean nothing. Those are the things that probably
it's
really
about the doors.
Get
it's about the doors
underneath my skin, because there's so much more to it.
Yes, absolutely. Play Sims for a living. It's my favorite one.
Oh,
I wish. Yeah. But as you know, now monkeys can't do this.
Yes.
So we'll talk about that more in the next episode. Should
Indeed.
we say it's a wrap?
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for keeping an eye on the time. Join us again for our next episode. And as ever, like, share and comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.